Good morning and hello, how's it going? I hope you're enjoying a fantastic day today. It is pouring down rain and thundering. My dog is freaking out, so if you hear additional noises, there's the preemptive. That's what we're dealing with right now. So I'm very excited to bring you the answers to another palette tag. It was originally created by Baute. I will include her channel in the description box below. And I was really intrigued after watching Rita's video. You know her as It's Me Hunter is her channel name. I will also link her in the description box below. But if you're interested in filming this tag on your channel, there are 9 questions to kind of talk about where you got started, what you gravitate towards, and all that. So I thought it was really fun, and it got me definitely thinking about kind of my preferences and my palettes, and made me realize a couple things about myself. So first off, question number 1, what palette started it all for you? What was your very first palette? And for me, I've been shopping at Sephora for a very long time. I was into the Bare Minerals collections and kits and things, and I used to wear Lancome and Estee Lauder and Clinique. Clinique was like a brand that I wore for years and years and years. But my very first palette, not just palette, but high-end palette, would be the first for a lot of us. This was a first in many ways for me, the Urban Decay Naked palette, because not only did it get me into watching YouTube, it got me into following Get Ready With Me's and tutorials, but it was my first, it was my first palette. I actually didn't jump on the trend for a very long time, because when the palette was first released back in 2008, or was it 2008 or 2009? I don't remember exactly, but it really intimidated me, because all the shades on this side of the palette, like we're talking Creep, Gunmetal, you know, Toasted and Hustle, those were things I didn't feel comfortable wearing. But through Pan That palette, because this was the first palette that I panned completely out of my collection, as you can see, empty, done, falling apart. I panned this back in 2014, and it really kind of helped me realize a lot of things about what I want my makeup collection to do. So a first on a lot of levels for me. It is a great palette to have included in your collection if you want those really bronzy tones and easy to wear kind of smoky eyes on a day-to-day basis. Question number 2, your most recent purchase. For my birthday, I was drawn in. I decided to pick up the Kat Von D Shade and Light Glimmer palette, and I'm kind of on the fence about this one, because I've got Kat Von D on the brain, thinking about panning it next year. And so when I saw this palette and all the reviews and videos and swatches online, I thought, oh, it's so beautiful, because on camera, doesn't it look stunning? It looks really, really just incredible. But when you look at the palette in person, this is just my opinion, some of the really shimmery shades look chalky. They do. And I was watching Steph's video, and she was a Daisy Girly, and she was talking about that, and I've swatched them. I've used just a touch of some of the shades, like this gold shade over here, which is kind of chalky and a little bit patchy, and I used this sterling shade right here. But other than that, like, I'm still, I don't know, I'm on the fence about it, so we'll have to see. But it is really beautiful. I did want to pick it up just because, I mean, golly, the packaging really just suckered me in. I could not help myself. I've been able to pass up on a lot of palettes, but man, she got it with the packaging for me this go around. Just super classy looking, love it. All right, question number 3, one palette that you regret missing out on. The palette that I really felt kind of the, not just FOMO, but I really regretted for several years, was the Too Faced A Few of My Favorite Things palette that was released, it's been a while, a couple of Christmases ago. And the reason that I really was just disappointed that I missed out on that one is because I had the opportunity to buy it, but at the same time I chose not to, because I was kind of getting started on my panning journey at that point. But everything about that palette just really appealed to me. I loved the packaging, I loved the layout, the orchid shade that was in there, which kind of reminds me of the orchid that Jared's including in the Clover palette releasing sometime this fall. So maybe that palette kind of harkens a little bit to the Too Faced A Few of My Favorite Things, since that is such a beloved palette from the Too Faced brand. I don't know, comment below if you have the Too Faced A Few of My Favorite Things, and then compare it to the pictures online of the Clover palette. I'm really curious to know this. But the other reason I really fell in love with it is because of the Sound of Music theme with all of the shadow names. Sound of Music has always been one of my all-time favorite musicals, and it brings back a lot of childhood memories for me. And so just that palette brought nostalgia and love of makeup and everything together. And it's the one palette emotionally I would have been attached to had I jumped on the bandwagon and purchased it. I don't feel the regret anymore because I do have quite an extensive palette collection, and now I'm kind of facing just myself and dealing with what I want from my makeup. But yeah, that was the one palette that really would have just really stuck with me emotionally had I gotten it. All right, question number 4. One palette that makes you happy to look at. All of them. Every single palette makes me happy in some way. I mean, how else would we get suckered in? But really, like, if we're gonna just pick one just for aesthetic value, need I say more? I love how creative this was, that she did the whole record kind of vinyl, you know, vibe going on with the color wheel, and I love the packaging on it. I'm kind of just, I don't like the fact that it's kind of a pain to store, and it's definitely not travel friendly, but seriously, you open these up and see all the shades. Can you tell I'm kind of thinking about painting, like already numbering these and kind of thinking of the ideas that I'm gonna do? I don't know, I'm not officially decided on it, but this is one palette that really just makes me smile every time I see it because of all those colors, and just, I love her creativity and in the packaging and the layout, everything. Like, Kat Von D is definitely just stellar in terms of being more original and creative with her ideas. All right, question number 5. One palette that you changed your mind about. Need I say more? Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, the palette that I'm panning this year. This range of colors really has just surprised me. There's a lot of brown, a lot of brown in this palette, but one of the things that I've realized, and I'll kind of touch on this as we get further on into the year, closer to being done, this palette is by far the most versatile if you want a one-stop shop makeup routine, or if you want a palette that will travel well on the go and be multi-purpose for you. Because one of the things that I've really realized about this palette, especially in the last week, is you can use this for the majority of your face. If you have dark hair and dark brows, you can use Triple Fudge in your brows. There are several shades in here that you can use to contour with, because Milk Chocolate, awesome winter contour shade because it's a cooler tone. Semi-Sweet is an exact dupe to the Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer. So there you go. You've got, you know, an eyeshadow that can multi-purpose. Other things, Hazelnut and Hot Chocolate, great if you like shimmery bronzers. I'm actually wearing Hazelnut as my bronzer kind of slash contour today. You can also highlight your face with this palette. You can obviously do your eye looks. You can set your under eye concealer with a shade like White Chocolate. You can go through and use the pinker shades as highlight. I mean, just tons and tons of uses with this palette. I've had my struggles with it, and I've had my roller coaster, because that's just part of the process of panning. It happens with any palette, no matter how beloved it is when I started. But this palette, I mean, literally has pushed me further than a lot of the other palettes that I've panned, but also too, I mean, really when it comes down to it, I'm realizing that this is definitely the most versatile out of the neutral palettes so far. So I don't know, kind of an interesting tidbit on there, but literally if you want a one-stop shop palette and you have darker hair, this is the way to go, to be real honest. And then you can minimize some of the extra products that you're keeping in your makeup bag, because if you're traveling out of town, you don't need to take a brow powder. You don't need to take extra highlighting powders because you can use Champagne Truffle. You don't need to take extra eyeshadow because you can do everyday basic looks. You can amp them up. You can do burgundy. You can go a lot of different directions. There are still some dud shades in this palette, don't get me wrong, but overall it is just, the versatility is astounding in comparison to a lot of other neutral palettes. So that was something that really kind of smacked me in the face, but I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? It has to be mentioned because that palette has just shocked me to no end continuously this year. All right, question number 6 is a palette that has surprised you. Sorry, it was like a hair, and hopefully the lighting isn't gonna be as yellow this go around, because with the storm going on outside, it's kind of doing some weird things with my camera. So anyways, the palette that has surprised me lately has been the Too Faced Sugar Pop palette. I've gotten a ton of wear out of it this summer, and I've really just embraced the brightness of a lot of these shades. I wanted color and just to step out of my neutral comfort zone, because I've been kind of bored with it. Like I said, that Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette has really pushed me this year, and I've been on quite a roller coaster with some of the dud shades and being bored and all the brown, and now I'm kind of realizing, like, I have changed my mind about the palette, realizing the versatility, but this palette in particular really, you know, kind of changed my mind towards it too, because my most favorite has been to combine bubblegum and macaron here and wear it in my transition. This shade, Sweet and Spicy, when I first, you know, would pull out this palette and look at it, it was one of the shades that I just kind of went, you know, no big deal, but I adore this shade as a highlight on my face, as a highlight on my eyes. It is glorious. This was the shade that I was immediately attracted to at first, and I don't like it as much as I thought I would, and that is the Strawberry Ice. It is really pretty, but this one is just gorgeous on the skin even more than this one. And I've fallen in love with the Blackberry shade, and now that I know that Hazelnut works so well out of the Too Faced Chocolate Bar as a shimmery bronzer, that might be an idea for Malted Milk Ball if you're looking to pan this palette in your collection. And even with a raspberry, blue raspberry over here, this is a shade that I really had to learn how to work with, because I'm not hugely fond of it. I don't like it as a lid shade. I don't like it in my crease, but I did like using it as a transition shade with my Unicorn Eyes video. I'll go on and link that in the card above if you're wanting an idea with this palette. I fell in love with that look, and that one I used a combo of blue raspberry and the Blackberry shade over here with the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. So love, love, love that look. But this palette has definitely surprised me, and it makes me excited to get back into more and more of my palettes in my collection and show them some love. But another reason that this really kind of surprised me is, again, Too Faced formulas, when it comes to those glitter shadows, it can be a little bit hit or miss. So I was very pleasantly surprised that this has been a lot easier to pull out and enjoy than I thought it was going to be, because some of the shades can be a little bit challenging to work with. So on to number 7, a palette that inspires you the most. Just like Rita, I'm going to answer Lorac Pro 2. I've realized that overall, at this point, this is probably my most favorite palette of all the palettes I own. It is the palette that I would consider repurchasing, because after I'm done with the palette, I'm good. You know, I don't replace them because I'm ready to move on to something else after spending a year with it. But the shades in this, as you can see, I've hit tons of pan in quite a few of these shades, but I really love the just color arrangement. And after panning Lorac Pro palette, realizing favorite combinations I had out of there, it's really made me fall in love with shades like Chrome, Plum, Nectar, Rosé from a look that I panned with Garnet, and the L'Oreal Infallible shade in Amber Rush back when I panned the Lorac Pro palette. Light brown, it's an easy warm brown. A lot of people think that this palette trend's really cool. I'm like Rita, I beg to disagree, because yes, there are a couple of cooler tone shades in here, but stuff like this on this side are actually quite warm on the skin. So this side of the palette's more warm, the darker shades are definitely cooler toned. Not a huge fan of jade, but as for the rest of the palette, it is absolutely stunning. And like I said, it's the one palette that I know the shades are gonna work, they're gonna be beautiful. I love the Lorac formula, even though I don't like how powdery it can be, but they blend beautifully on the skin, and I love the color selection in this palette. So that was kind of fun to figure out that this is probably my most favorite palette, because it never ceases to not inspire me whenever I open this up. And I love to use this as a companion palette as well with other things. Then number 8, one on my wish list, a palette on my wish list. I would love to have the Lorac Mega Pro 3. That's another one. Actually, that's probably one that I regret missing out on because I just, you know, I was in the process of panning the Stila shadows when it came out, and I didn't want to have another large palette in my collection because I did pick up the Lorac Mega Pro 2 and I thought I don't need the Mega Pro 3, but I really just learned to love warm shadows last year. I absolutely fell in love, and so now that is a palette that I think of all those coppery shades and the warm, you know, pinks and burgundies and plums, and I want that palette. You know, I don't like the white packaging on it, but I want that palette. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get one when it's re-released because that's a palette that I feel like I do have an opportunity maybe to get that one. Hopefully it doesn't sell out in a hot second, but we know how that goes. So, and then the last question, your no-fail palette, number 9. I guess I gotta go with this one. Actually, if I really get into it, my no-fail palette, when I pan Stila in the Light and Stila in the No, and those are discontinued. I mean, they have the new versions of like Eyes Are the Window and Eyes Are the Mind, or, you know, Mind, Soul, Body, Spirit, whatever the palettes are. They have the gold packaging when you go into Ulta and Sephora. But the Stila in the Light and Stila in the No that came in the original cardboard packaging, those were no-fail palettes for me. I didn't like that the shadows were old because that brings about issues of its own. But just in terms of color and pigmentation and ease of blending and just coming up with combinations, I never was unhappy with a single look that I came up with those Stila shadows. So I guess you could say Stila is my no-fail palette, but then this one's also a no-fail palette again with the Lorac Pro 2 because, you know, you got, like I said, you've got the range of warm tones, you've got the shades of cool tones. I'm the type of person when I do my makeup, I need to mix because of my neutral skin tone. I can't do completely warm looks because they make my eyes look swollen and puffy, but I can't do completely cool looks because they make me look bruised and sickly. So, you know, stuff like this is a great addition for me because then, you know, like I said, I've got kind of the range of both ends of the spectrum in one place. So that's about it. It's been really fun to kind of go through my palettes and see where I am and kind of how I think about them. So I look forward to watching you do this video. Again, if you want to check out Katie and Rita's channels, go on and check that description box below. That is it for now. Take care. I look forward to seeing you real soon. So adios.